Big thanks to Kippo for sponsoring this video. What's Kippo, you ask? Well, it's a dating app for gamers, ages 18 and up. According to Digital Trends, it was the #1 dating app of the year 2020. It's super easy to set up and offers some fun, quirky ways to match up with others by letting you do things like list your favorite games or make use of cards, which could be anything from talking about your favorite anime to your cute little pets. Now, I'm lucky enough to already be in a relationship with the most beautiful girl in the world. So for people like me, Kippo has the option called Friends Only if you want to look for, friends. But who cares about friends, am I right? Let's ask someone who's actually using it for dating about the app. So, am I correct in assuming you actually met Zelda in this app? That's amazing! Could we take a peek at your profile? Wow, great stuff, man. You should be proud. So, whether you're like me and you just want to find some friends to play some games with, or you're like Link here and you want to find people to play around with, and click the link in the description below to get Kippo today. And now, onto the video.
Samus Aran has a very particular way of dealing with her problems. You see, if a problem appears before our beloved bounty hunter, normally the response is to shoot it until it is no longer a problem. It's a very simple but effective method. So effective, in fact, that most of her enemies have pretty much been wiped out of existence by this point. This is why Metroid Dread, the first 2D Metroid game in 19 years to canonically continue Samus's legacy of intergalactic domination, is such a big deal. And why I've come up with a theory as to who or what might be the bounty hunter's next and potentially final enemy. On that note though, let's get a couple disclaimers out of the way before entering the theory realm. This video is going to have some pretty major spoilers in it for all of the other 2D Metroid games, so consider yourself warned if you haven't played or read the story so far. And real quick, for those of you that are either completely new to the franchise or are still scratching your head wondering what the difference is between Metroid 4 and Metroid Prime 4, allow me to explain. The Metroid franchise is split into two main storylines that have the same origin and exist on the same timeline. You have the original Metroid storyline, which consists of the 2D or side-scroller games, which each have a unique game title as well as chronological number assigned to them, such as Metroid 3 being also known as Super Metroid or Metroid 5 being known as Metroid Dread. On the other hand, you have the Metroid Prime games, which take place in their entirety between the 2D games Metroid 1, aka Zero Mission, and Metroid 2, aka The Return of Samus. Now, with the groundwork laid for the content in this video, the last thing I'd like to say is if you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like below to get this video spread around on YouTube, and to let me know if you'd like to see more Metroid content, since this is actually the first time I'm experimenting with the franchise and I'd love to do more. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't already to stick around for much more Nintendo content to come. There's a lot of backstory to cover in this video, so for your convenience, if you'd like to skip sections or return to sections, I'll have the video separated into chapters with timestamps on the timeline for easy access. Let's begin by recapping the ending of Metroid Fusion and therefore Samus's last known status. Following the events of Super Metroid, Samus had finally fulfilled her duty to the Galactic Federation and eliminated the last Metroid in existence. Or so she thought. See, she had a bunch of baby Metroid particles rain down on her from said last Metroid in the final battle, which is an ending to a whole other dramatic storyline that I won't get into at this time. The particles of this baby Metroid that was killed in the climactic battle were taken off of Samus's power suit and ironically used illegally by some secret Galactic Federation scientists in order to create, you guessed it, more Metroids. Including a Queen Metroid, in fact, which spawned the events of the game Metroid Other M, which I guess you could call Metroid 3.5. Samus once again kills this new Metroid and thus halts production of new Metroids, and once again the universe is free of their presence entirely. But then the Federation realized that they kind of messed up when they ordered Samus to kill all the Metroids. See, they deemed the Metroid species too dangerous to exist due to several reasons. Mainly their parasitic nature and the fact that evil forces such as the space pirates could easily multiply the Metroids' numbers and use Metroids for galactic conquest. What the Federation didn't know though was that the Metroids were actually created by the ancient but extinct civilization of highly advanced bird people known as the Chozo. The Chozo, who were also the people who created Samus's power power armor and were responsible for raising Samus, created the Metroids for the sole purpose of preying on the real biggest threat to the cosmos, known as the X-Parasite. An all-consuming and all-assimilating parasite that feasts on and then controls living organisms after consuming those organisms' memories and skills, with no limit to the amount of organisms it can control, no limit to the amount of times it can reproduce asexually, and no natural predators. The literal universe-ending threat potential in the X-Parasite is precisely why the Chozo created the Metroids, which became the predators of the X and had nearly wiped them out of existence on their home planet known as SR-388, until a certain bounty hunter under order of the Galactic Federation came in and killed all the Metroids. Cue the events of Metroid Fusion, which is a Metroid game that ironically has very little to do with actual Metroids. Two very big things happen to Samus biologically in this game that I want to make sure everyone knows before going forward. The first is that she actually gets infected with the dreaded X-Parasite when she was on planet SR-388, assisting a research team from the Biologics Space Laboratories, which is a research extension of the Galactic Federation. They were researching life forms on the planet when an X-possessed Hornode attacked them. Samus was able to kill it easily, of course, but doing so released the X, which then entered Samus's power suit. Long story short, it infected her suit and subsequently Samus herself, after which she was rushed to doctors aboard the Biologic Space Laboratory station who had no clue how to help and was given a 1% chance of survival as the parasite ate her molecules. However, some scientists got the idea to formulate a vaccine using a cell culture that they kept from the last Metroid. This vaccine cured Samus immediately and turned Samus's DNA partially into Metroid DNA, making her share the Metroid characteristics of being able to consume the X-Parasite but also making her vulnerable to cold temperatures. So now Samus is part Metroid and all seems well, but while she was busy getting healed, the X that remained in her power suit decided it would become a corrupted X version of Samus, since that's kind of what the X-Parasite does. And thus the first of the dreaded SA-X parasites was formed, which are all evil copies of Samus at her full power. Fast forward to the end of the game when Samus finally meets and defeats one of these X doppelgangers. Upon its defeat, it released its nucleus, or rather its core X, and was then fully absorbed by Samus, who at this point was said to be restored to her pre-vaccine state and no longer possessed a vulnerability to cold. After this, Samus is once again able to use her Ice Beam and defeats a Metroid in its Omega stage of development, because the Galactic Federation had been breeding them in a restricted lab aboard the space station. And after defeating this Omega Metroid, Samus realizes the X has been breeding all throughout the Biologic Space Laboratory station, and decides that the only way to save the world is to crash the entire station into the planet SR-388, and blows it and the entire planet and everything on it to smithereens. Once again, using her highly effective strategy, she has not only rid the world of all remaining Metroids and Metroid cell cultures, but also the dreaded X-Parasite. Well, all except for one. Samus Aran was afflicted fatally by the X-Parasite, which began altering her on a molecular level. This was only resolved when she became partially Metroid and therefore equipped the fusion suit, and thus gained an immunity to the X. So Metroid DNA Samus ran around as partially Metroid until the very end of Metroid Fusion, when she ate a core X and became Omega Suit Samus, which was the last version of Samus we saw before Metroid Dread's reveal. This is crucial information because it implies that Samus is essentially both Metroid and X-Parasite in the same individual. The fact that she isn't dead after absorbing the core X is proof enough that she still has Metroid DNA in her, as well as the fact that she directly states in her personal log in Metroid Dread that she is still immune to the X-Parasite, and the fact that she gained lost abilities and a new suit by adding the X-Parasite to her DNA at the end of the game implies that there must be a perfect balance of Metroid and X that exists within her. Otherwise, she would either be dead from a lack of Metroid DNA, or she would not have the Omega suit from a lack of X-Parasite. Both have to be present for Samus to exist as she did when she flew away at the end of Metroid Fusion. And this is heavily implied to still be the case to some degree, since her suit in Metroid Dread, we'll call it the Dread suit, bears some striking similarities to the Fusion suit in both its slimmer fit and blue organic material present all over. What this means is that the universe is not yet completely rid of Metroids or the X-Parasite. Samus Aran is the last of either of these species. Whether we're talking about Samus, the Space Pirates, the Metroids, or the X-Parasite, the common denominator that links Samus's destiny with those parties is the Galactic Federation. The Federation has generally been considered the force of good in the games, which is why Samus didn't really mind doing jobs for them. You know, like the genocide of an entire species a couple times there. However, after you peel back the surface of lore in the franchise, you'll find many reasons to question the Federation's moral standings, such as they have space pirate spies among their ranks, or the many different attempts they've made to secretly and sometimes straight up illegally create weapons of mass destruction, like when they repeatedly tried to breed Metroids to use as bioweapons, or when they created clones of Mother Brain and Ridley, or even when they tried to replicate Samus's power suit and morph ball. Clearly, the Federation has been shown to take on a much darker and even sometimes villainous role, especially since the events of Metroid Fusion. You see, earlier when I was recapping Samus's status after Fusion, I skipped over the parts where she directly rebelled against the Federation. Twice, actually. Once was after she discovered the restricted lab aboard the biologic space laboratory that was breeding Metroids. Upon her discovery, she had inadvertently also led the SAX into the lab, upon which the lab went into emergency mode, launched itself into space, and blew itself up. Her Galactic Federation computer named Adam, which is the same computer that she's shown talking to in Dread, was obviously very upset at this and scolded her for causing the restricted lab's destruction, and then instructed her to basically stand down and wait for the Federation to investigate the X further because, get this, the Federation saw potential in the X-Parasite for weapons. Are you starting to see a pattern here? Anyway, of course Samus, who knows how dangerous the X is firsthand, is unwilling to give it a chance at galactic domination. She disagrees and disobeys Adam's orders of standing down. After apparently convincing Adam to see things her way, she then rebels against the Federation once again by destroying their biologic space lab as well as the entire planet of SR388, which they were trying to study. As Samus flies off into the distance at the end of the game, she says to her computer friend Adam that she doubts anyone, meaning the Federation, will ever understand why she destroyed the X, and even directly states that the Federation will most likely hold her responsible for this rebellion. So, as of the events leading up to Metroid Dread, Samus has become part Metroid, part X-Parasite, defied the Federation on several accounts, and destroyed 2 entire planets as well as the biologic space lab and everyone on it. Now, let's talk about Metroid Dread. One of the only things we're able to know about Samus's new adventure in Metroid Dread is that she's being hunted by these strange, seemingly indestructible robots, known as Extraplanetary Multiform Mobile Identifiers, or EMMI for short. According to the official game's website, the EMI were created and dispatched to the unknown distant planet known as ZDR by none other than the Galactic Federation. The purpose of these robots is apparently to capture and extract DNA from unknown creatures. According to Samus's own log, the Federation received some sort of cryptic video that apparently held evidence of the X-Parasite still living somewhere. They were apparently able to trace the signal's origin to the distant planet ZDR and then launched a research unit along with 7 EMI robots to apparently find and extract the X-Parasite. The research unit allegedly disappeared once they arrived on the planet. When Samus learned of all this, she said, "Does the X truly still exist? And just what is happening on ZDR? It's up to me, the only one immune to the X-Parasite, to go find out." And then decided to fly off to planet ZDR and get involved with all of this of her own volition. Now, it's possible that the Metroid devs are legitimately just adding in more X-Parasite on a new unknown planet kind of randomly. But let's assume for the time being that the Chozo were correct when they researched and found that the X-Parasite is only present on the planet SR388 and had not yet begun to repopulate on other planets. After all, that is the entire reasoning behind their decision to contain the X-Parasite to its native planet and why they created the Metroids in the first place and released them on said planet. If this is true, then Samus really did rid the world of the X when she destroyed the planet, including everyone and everything on it, and the biologic space station, which were the only 2 places in existence that the X was present in. Given that Samus herself stated that the Federation would hold her accountable for these actions and would not understand her reasoning for destroying the X, and the Federation's proven history of secretive and even illegal weapons projects, here's the big question that potentially all of the events of Metroid Dread are centered around. What if the Federation has lured Samus to this random remote planet of ZDR because she has the last remaining X-Parasite within her own DNA, and the Emmy robots are supposed to hunt her? What if Metroid Dread is a trap for the bounty hunter? Think about it, there are no living Galactic Federation researchers or scientists on the planet. I'd imagine just in case Samus blows it up again. The Emmy robots are also suspiciously far more powerful than is necessary for their purposes as research robots. And when they kill Samus, they send some sort of probe into her body which could very possibly be extracting her DNA, which would line up perfectly with their stated purpose. We know for a fact that the Federation is obsessed with developing massively powerful weapons from biological sources, and they haven't ever been able to truly give up trying with Metroid and X parasites. So extracting both Metroid and X DNA, or some sort of indestructible perfect balance of the two, while ridding themselves of the only one that could possibly stand in their way, Samus Aran, is the perfect two birds with one stone scenario that is exactly the kind of thing the Federation would try to pull off. And since the dev team directly stated on the game's website that this game will end Samus's connection to the Metroids once and for all, logically, the only way to truly do so would be to end her connection with the ones who just can't let it all go. The common denominator, the Galactic Federation themselves. And because this will end the Metroid species' legacy, I think it's entirely possible that either the Federation, Samus herself, or both will no longer exist by the end of the game. Metroid Dread may be Samus Aran's final battle. But that's all just my theory. What do you guys think? Did Samus make an enemy of the Galactic Federation due to her rebellion in Metroid Fusion? Or is everything forgiven and this is all just an innocent play at obtaining more X-Parasite with killer robots that are trying to kill Samus? Let me know in the comments below. Also, thank you so very much for watching. I've wanted to cover Metroid for a while now, and I even announced back in February that I was going to. It took me a few months, but here we are. If you enjoyed this video, please consider dropping a like below to get it spread to other Metroid fans out there. And make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already, because at this point, who knows what I may cover next. Huge thanks as always to my amazing Bandit crew, of which I have lots of new names to announce. Say hello to Tiny Elf, Melissa O, Jared B, Ooga Booga, Playmaker Dual Links, Lid 8-Bit, and Adam S, who have all recently joined the ranks of my elite. Seriously, you guys are the best of the best, and if you watching are interested in helping these videos get made, please check out that join button below or follow the links in my description for my Patreon and merch pages. Also down there are the links to my other social media pages, so come on over and follow me on Twitter for more thoughts and comments from yours truly. That's all I've got for this one, so as always, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. This is Masked Nintendo Bandit signing out and looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace!